How did you get in player development? This is a question I've been asked multiple times. And honestly, this is the first time I'm sharing it fully on this podcast because I thought that my path was a lot different. Of course, some of you all know I was a high school coach and then transitioned into the role at the University of Houston and had stops at the University of Kansas and Baylor. And so we're doing a 2-part series. So this first episode is, or a 2-part podcast, we're doing 2 parts. All right. This first part is basically how I got into the role. And then the next part 2 will be how I went from school to school. So educating you all on how I got in the role. And it was tough for me to share this for years, not because I didn't want to share. You all know I'm very open, very vulnerable about my career. I just thought I could not relate it to people coming out of college or people, just finding out about the role. But I found out when I looked at it and really wrote down these 8 things that helped me get into the role. I figured, you know what? I have more in common, to those looking to get into the role than I previously thought. So, hey, it's part 1. Let's jump into it. Hello. My name is Edward Jones II. I am the founder of Beyond the Field, where I help people like you create impactful player development plans. As I mentioned earlier, I was in the role at Houston, Kansas, and Baylor, and now I've transitioned to help many people like yourselves create generational impact in the lives of athletes. So let's jump into it. Here are the 8 things that helped me get into the role. As I said earlier, I was a high school coach, and I'll tell you exactly how this whole story happened. You'll hear more of it throughout. I found out about player development from a surprise interview. So I handled recruiting at my high school. So I was helping our guys go to the next level. And Coach Tom Herman, who was a head coach at the University of Houston, came to our university. And I was talking to him. I was saying, hey, Coach Herman, here are the guys we have in this class. Here are the guys we have in this class. And shout out to my head coach, Coach Patrick McGinnis. He said, hey, Coach Herman, if I were you, I'd be trying to recruit Jones. Tom Herman then looked dead at me and said, that's the reason why I'm here. Do you have a room where we can do an interview? And I'm like, oh, snap. I was not prepared for this. Now, I knew a lot of coaches who had gotten head jobs or were looking for head jobs, and I would reach out to them and say, hey, I would love to be, a director of high school relations, or would love to be on your staff some kind of way. But I did not expect or was prepared for this interview. So we go into the room, we interview, and I know him because we had 3 kids that were committed to the University of Houston at the time, and they decommitted. He said it had nothing to do with them. He did not want them back. He wanted to come and get me personally to help his players. And we're going to talk about the 8 things that helped me get to that place where a head coach who had just won the Peach Bowl came to my high school and gave me an interview that I was not prepared for. Number 1, I was great at my role. I was where my feet were. I spent a lot of time. I sacrificed a lot of my social life to be the best high school coach and recruiting coordinator that I could be. My friends used to think I was crazy. I would stay till 11, 12 o'clock in the morning, just working on these charts, ensuring that our players were, number 1, getting the exposure they needed, and number 2, understood the recruiting process. And that's what I dove into. How can I get these guys opportunity? When I played, now I wasn't an all-state, all-district player. I was a pretty good player. We had a lot of good players on our team. And I remember we only had 2 guys sign scholarships my senior year. And I thought that was crazy because I was like, man, we have so many good players. And so I was like, you know what? Let me help these players now. So I literally just dove into it. I took players to football camps. I went to coaching clinics to build relationships. When coaches came through, we tried to cater to them, which I'll talk about earlier. I remember University of Texas had a coaching clinic, and they were talking about the new core GPA rules. I remember I sat there in the front, and there wasn't a lot of people. There were a lot of people left. I sat in the front. I got the administrator's name and number and email, and we talked so much so I could understand core GPAs. Then from the core GPAs, I went to the registrar, our counseling office, those who had our kids' transcripts, they got their transcripts and figured everything out. Like, hey, this is what you need. This is what we're looking at. Here's the core GPAs. We went in and made sure on certain schedules that they were taking core classes. I was talking to our counselors about, hey, these classes need to be core classes because that helps their core GPA. So I was fully invested into helping our players get recruited. And so because of that, what happened was our players, they talk when they would go on these recruiting trips. They would talk. Oh, well, who's doing that? Yeah, Coach Jones got us set up. Coach Jones told us to come to this camp. Coach Jones told us to do this. And so they're talking, and I started meeting other players at other schools, and they were saying, man, you do a lot for the kids. But I started meeting parents and different people like that. One coach, I actually just got to see him this past weekend. Coach Curtis Looper at the time was at TCU. Now he's at Missouri. He came to our school one day and said, Jones, you will not be at the high school level very long. And I asked why. He said these kids talk about you whenever they go. They talk about how you help them. They talk about how you not only help them in recruiting, but how you help them in life, how you're holding them accountable, doing different things like that. And then he said what's crazy about that is your kids talk about you, but other players talk about you as well. And so I was locked into being the best person I could be in the role. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear the term be where your feet are, but it is so true. And that is what helped me with the initial transition into the player development role. And that trait to the University of Houston or to Tom Herman showed that I could focus on my roles and responsibilities. So by being the best I could be at my job, being where my feet were, it translated to we could bring him into our program because he focuses on his roles and responsibilities to an elite level. And that is the number one reason why, or one of the reasons why I was able to transition from a high school coach into player development. Number two, I made myself known. Okay? I use social media. I see it all the time. Now, at that time when I was a high school coach, it was Twitter. Some of you all may have, come to know me from LinkedIn or whatever. Matter of fact, if you come to know me from LinkedIn, press that like button. But I used Instagram, which I'm still learning, but I used Twitter. I created a hashtag recruit the Canes. Recruit the Canes. Everything I did, recruit the Canes. Recruit the Canes, recruit the Canes, recruit the Canes. So coaches knew when they were coming, coaches would come in and be like, hey, recruit the Canes. But also it was a hashtag, right? It was a hashtag so a coach can click on that and see all the information on our players. Yes, use the system. I made myself known. It wasn't just me, it was our program. They knew we had players because we kept tweeting about players. Tweet. These guys are in the community. So-and-so made all A honor roll. AB honor roll, so-and-so's NHS, recruit the Canes, recruit the Canes, recruit the Canes. I made myself known through social media. It is a free resource you can use to make yourself known. And I know a lot of people, I get it. I don't like being on social media. It's a lot of things that it just can distract you, whatever it may be, but it can be used to your advantage. It was used so much when I was retweeting things about the University of Houston, because that's my alma mater, while Coach Herman was there leading them to the Peach Bowl. He was liking what I was retweeting and retweeting what I was retweeting, which I thought was weird because I'm like, wait, like the head coach is retweeting like what I'm talking about or like liking what I'm like, they got their own account. They have their own program. So eventually I made this like really good analogy. There was this picture, some of you all have seen it, of like a player running to the line and their foot's like an inch off the line. And I remember I put, hey, don't tell me how much you're committed to the process or winning if this is how you do if this is how you do anything, because how you do anything is how you do everything, right? Something like that. Well, Coach Herman retweeted it and quoted on it and put some on it, which I found out later when I was hired at the University of Houston. Shout out to Lauren DeBose in compliance. She was like, he got a violation for that. So it's funny that my next employer, the head coach, got a violation for one of my tweets, but you get the story. He literally retweeted what I tweeted, because he saw me on social media. I made myself known not only as the guy who's doing recruiting out of Hightower. Hey, he's a coach, he's a teacher, he's leading people. I made myself known. And I know there are some of you all that are watching this who are like, well, I don't want to brag on myself. I don't want to promote myself. You got to, okay? People who aren't doing things are promoting themselves, okay? There's a lot of self-promoters who cannot get things done, who have not gotten things done and will never get things done. And that's not being mean, that's being truthful. Okay, some people are promoting that they can do this or they can do that, and they've never done it. They don't have a clue. They don't know how to create a solution for a problem in that field. So if they're going to do it, you might as well join it and provide value. And that's what I do, right? So for me, I post a lot because I want to provide value to you. And maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe if you're sitting there on the fence, like, I don't want to be that guy or I don't want to be that gal, whatever it is, provide value. Use social media to provide value. That tweet I put about not touching the line provided value enough for a head coach to retweet it and get a violation. So use social media. And it was was pretty awesome. When I was at Hightower High School, our AD, Philip O'Neill, shout out to you, Coach O'Neill. Coach O'Neill, I didn't know Coach O'Neill knew me, but he was talking about coaches should be using social media. He said, hey, I was in Fort Bend ISD, once again, my alma mater, where I'm from in Houston. And he was saying, we have to use social media for our programs, y'all. It just brings more exposure. We can raise money. We can do a lot of things. And then literally doing that, he's like Ed Jones at Hightower. Ed Jones uses social media, recruit the Canes. He's always talking about a recruit every single day. He always has something about a game day. He always does this. He always does that. And I was just like, oh, snap. I didn't know the AD realized it, but it was something that, made not only myself known, but what we were doing. It wasn't about me. It was about what we were doing. And I got to see it on that. Now, how did that translate? How did me making myself known or what I was doing known translate to getting hired? It showed that I had a great use of social media. The big thing that the University of Houston football program was doing at that time in 2015 was they were crushing it on Twitter with H-Town Takeover, with GIFs, however you want to say it, Giphy, Jiffy, whatever. They were crushing it on social media. And so they wanted to add someone who could do that. So not only were they like, hey, he can do his roles and responsibilities, but honestly, he can jump on with the social media and really, really kickstart what we're all, not kickstart, excuse me, but add fire to what we're already doing. And so that actually worked. That's exactly how it was. When I got there, we were on Twitter big. We talked about using social media to connect with players, fans, alumni, different things, people in the city. And so I had already had that previous exposure, the previous skill created when I was a high school coach. If you're loving these tips I'm giving you about how I got into the role, you would love the 100 Tips of Player Development. Go into the show notes and download your copy of 100 Tips of Player Development today. Number 3, I understood recruiting and I understood their role. So like you heard me talk about when I was at the University of Texas, they talked about all this stuff. So I understood what core GPA was. I knew to give them base GPA, core GPA, whatever. I understood what they needed to do. We wanted to make it as quick as possible when coaches came in our building because we were in Fort Bend ISD. That is a talent-rich area in Houston. If anybody knows Houston, you got Fort Bend ISD, you got Pearland, you got Manville, you got A-Leaf. So the southwest part of Houston is where a lot of players get recruited. And so I wanted to make sure, because I knew that they had to hit a lot of schools. So they would say, I got to hit 8 schools. I wanted them to know when they come to Hightower that we're going to have that. Once they came in, here's the big board. Here's name, height, whatever you need to know. Boom, there it is. Okay, you have any questions? Here's core GPA. Here it is. You need to, come to my room, whatever, office, you need it, whatever. Boom. We had it set because I knew that they could not sit there and they could not wait on someone to, where did I put that? Shout out to Peyton Anderson, who was my intern at the time. Peyton had everything. We had PowerPoints. We sent PowerPoints. We had a PowerPoint running in the room that we would take our coaches. We were completely prepared because we understood what they needed to do. We understood they had a lot of schools to hit. They didn't have a lot of time. We understood that they needed a lot of information. That was the other thing, because they were going back to these recruiting meetings and they needed to know what this kid's GPA was, what his parents did, like how are they, what do they do on the field? Why did they switch positions? They came from another school, different things that they needed to know so they can go back and talk to their coaches. The other thing too is I understood their connection to Houston. A lot of coaches recruited Houston, recruited before. Some coaches would change schools. So I knew when they changed schools, okay, you were at an academic heavy school, you're here, maybe you transition here from this conference, maybe you're from Power 5 to FCS, maybe it's a different player, but just understanding everything to make it the easiest stop on their trip. And what happened because of that is it was the longest stop on their trip because they just loved coming in, kicking it with me and Coach Mack. They knew they were gonna get all the stuff they needed. And we would not try and kick coaches out because we always wanted them there, but we would always say, hey coach, look out. Here it is. I know you got to go. I know you got to get running. But they would say, you know what? I'm going to sit here, Jones. Y'all got it prepared. I know you always got it prepared. And then new coaches will come on the road. So with new coaches, we want to make sure that the coaches that are new to recruiting our school or Houston understood the lay of the land. So we weren't just talking about our players. We were talking about our area. We're talking about Houston, how to get in, how to get out, where you need to eat, different things like that. So just making their time on the road easier. Now, how did, understanding the role in recruiting and coaches on the road help translate or help me get into the player development position at the college level? They knew that I understood the big picture. So the University of Houston, in hiring me, once they saw how I always handle things in recruiting, they knew this guy gets the big picture. He understands what I have to do, what we have to do in recruiting. So if we hire him, he's going to take that understanding, and all we're going to do is give him more pieces, but he's going to see the big picture. Yes. All right, so I'm recording this one day after having the first player development workshop. It was incredible. I'm so thankful for the people who came to the Blueprint Planning Workshop. In this workshop, we were able to come together, collaborate, and create different plans of player development. If you're interested in joining a player development workshop or joining the next player development workshop, please click player development workshop link in the show notes. All right, number four, I talked about it a little bit earlier. I was efficient with their time. Once again, our area was loaded. In that span of Southwest Houston, there were about 120 kids that signed scholarships every year at minimum. And so I was super efficient with their time. They knew they can come in, get the big board. They knew they can get whatever they wanted. They knew they can call, text me, hey Jones, I'm only gonna be able to make it for 5 minutes. Can you blah, blah, blah? I get it. Boom, here you go, coach. I'm giving them, everything was prepared when they came in. I'm sending an email. What do you need? Hey, could you email this? I would physically mail out our big board to the coaches that I knew were coming on the road, because I would contact them. Hey coach, just want to see, are you still recruiting the area? Whatever, cool. I'm gonna mail you this. I'm also gonna email you this. Whatever you need, we got it. So we got them all they needed, all the things that they needed quickly, very, very quickly. How does that translate to me getting hired at University of Houston, a player development role? Efficiency. They were able to say, this guy is efficient with time. He gets it. He's going to get us what we need, nothing more, nothing less. And boom, we'll go from there. And like I said earlier, it was crazy. We would try and get them what they needed and get them out, but a lot of them stayed. But there were times where people were like, you know what, I got to hit one more school, because coaches have to hit a certain number of schools when they're on the road. You need to understand that. So they were like, man, I'm here. I got to hit one more school because we're supposed to reach 10 a day, 8 a day, 7 a day, whatever. And they'd be like, Jones, I'm going to swing through, blah, blah, blah. Coach will swing through. Boom, here we go. This is what you need, blah, 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 blah. Boom, come see practice for a little bit. Boom, out of there. Bye. So being efficient helped me get into the player development role. Number 5, I did what was best for the players overall. And what I mean by that, not only my players, I was going to do what's best for them overall. One thing that happens with coaching and recruiting is coaches will say, hey, my kid could play at your school. I knew we didn't have kids that could play at Alabama. We had a couple of them, but I knew every year we wouldn't have that, and so I wasn't going to sit there and tell a coach at Alabama, hey, this is, here's a player we got, right? Because I also didn't want to put my player in that situation, because if that coach says, hey, Jones is just selling his kids, the blah, 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 he's going to tell another coach that, so then another coach is not going to come. But I was also telling our players, hey, I know you want to play there, but this might be the best situation for you. So we always wanted to do what's best for the players. And when coaches would come in, if we did not have that player, I would literally tell these coaches, hey, this school has this player, right? And one year we had receivers, but we didn't have Division I receivers, big time Division I receivers. And Travis High School had two receivers, Steven Sims and Akeem Butler, 2 receivers we had played against. They were in our district. They were really, really good. And I remember telling some coaches, they would say, hey man, do y'all have receivers? I said, we don't have anybody that could play with you or at your level on your team, but there's 2 kids down the road that can play. And it was crazy. We kept telling coaches about these kids and they kept getting overlooked. So Steven was a little smaller. Hakeem was a bigger receiver who came from basketball, who might not have clocked the times that they wanted to see. Crazy thing is, both of them Steven went to the University of Kansas. Hakeem went to Iowa State. They both played in the NFL. They both played in the NFL. And so what that did was, for coaches, they knew that I was going to tell them the truth, because if I'm going to sell another player from another school, then I'm definitely going to tell you the truth about our players at our school. And so how did this help transition me into getting hired in a player development role? It helped them see that I cared about the futures of players, right? Because I was like, I'm going to do what's best for the player overall, be it our player or another player. By doing that, it helped them see this guy cares about the future of players. He's not going to blow smoke up their tail. He's not going to do anything like that. He cares about the future of players, which is very big in the player development role. The 6th thing that helped me get into player development from the high school role was I had a system of operations, a tight system of operations. Now, this one was crazy for me to look back at, because I wouldn't consider myself as a super detailed operational person, but in the role I was. Our recruiting, the way we did it at Hightower High School, Recruit the Canes, it was literally detailed from how we did it on social media. We did it a certain way. How we did the big board, we did it a certain way. How we had our spiel, we did it a certain way. We taught our players how to talk to coaches, how we taught our players to go to camps, our player engagement overall. How are you around the building? Coaches are coming to practice. This is what they're looking for. Don't walk. They're going to watch you at practice. Don't be the last in line. Don't be starting fights. Don't be not lit, or do not find yourself not listening to your coach, right? We had a system of how we taught, but not only our players, our coaching staff. I would talk to our coaching staff about what to talk to about a coach. Hey, coach, I know you love that kid. That kid cannot play at the University of Texas. He just cannot. All right. I know you love him. He cannot play at the University of Texas. But when you talk to this coach, talk to them about this, right? So I'm talking to our staff. We have meetings. Coach, this is how you should use social media. Boom, boom, boom. So we're rolling all this. We're talking to our teachers, right? Hey, teachers, there are opportunities. There are times we need to know. I need as whatever they're doing in the classroom, I need to know. If they are not doing what they're supposed to do in the class, don't tell me that at the end of the 6 weeks. I need to know that now because we need to communicate this with coaches. Parents, this is how you do recruiting, parents. When you go to camps, do this, look for this. Hey, parents, when you're talking to a coach or if a coach reaches out to your son, this is what it should look like. And so we had a full system of how players were going to get recruited at Hightower High School. From the minute they walked in, freshmen knew. We talked about recruiting the freshmen. You need to have a core GPA. That means in your classes, you need to have this many things here. We talked to that with parents. We talked to our sophomores. When kids first got on varsity, we talked about that. We talked about what highlights to make. How do you make a highlight tape? So we had a elite and a structured system of operations of how you could get recruited if you could play and you had the grades. Now, that's a big, thing. Every kid was, y'all promised me a scholarship. Ain't promised you nothing, dog. You got to be able to play and you got to be able to do that thing in the classroom. If you could do that, then, and you got height, speed, all that other stuff, then, whatever. We can't promise you that. But we had it to where everybody was prepared in the recruiting process. The players, the coaches, the parents, the staff, our administration, even some of our former players, right? Everybody was prepared. And so with that system of operations that coaches saw and talked to me about, it showed that I could run a unique program, that I could run a set of whatever we need to do in our college football program at the University of Houston. He can run that. Now, that definitely helped eventually create Beyond the Field. I've talked about my story about going into role, not really knowing what I needed to do, and then creating Beyond the Field. But what really helped me create Beyond the Field and literally go about this is how we do everything in player development, boom, 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 was because I'd already done it as a high school coach at that level with recruiting. Now, some of y'all saw that. Those are called transferable skills. We talk about this all the time with athletes, right? There are transferable skills in roles. When people are looking, if you're not in player development previously and you're trying to get into it, how do you have skills that transfer? Number 7, I value the coach's time and belief in my players. I value their time and belief in our players and in our coaching staff. You might be thinking, what do you mean by that, Ed? Okay, this is what I mean. I would write a letter to a coach every single time they came to our school. You may say, well, you know what? They had to come to your school because you were loaded with players. Yeah, we were. I'm not going to lie to you. But I wrote a letter to every coach. Coach, thank you so much for coming. I would send a text message that night. I write a list of everybody who came. And I sent a text message once everybody was gone, probably about 8 o'clock, 8:30. Coach, thank you so much for coming to our campus. Coach, thank you so much for coming to our campus. Now that part was kind of, template, but underneath that, it was so great talking to you about this. I'll get you an answer for this about the player. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your first time getting on the road, becoming a full-time coach. Hopefully you enjoy Houston. Go eat here, right? But I value their time by communicating with them. I wrote a letter to them saying, thank you so much. So they would get these letters and they would text me back. Hey man, appreciate the letter, blah, blah, blah. The other thing I did was I wrote a letter whenever one of our players got an offer or was offered a scholarship. I would write a letter to the coach who recruited our area. So let me step back for some of you all that may not know high school recruiting. There's a coach who recruits an area. So let's say if I work for a staff, most likely I would recruit the city of Houston, no matter what position I coach. So let's say I coach the inside linebackers. I'm going to recruit the city of Houston. I'm recruiting every single player. Now, if there's an inside linebacker that's in Cincinnati that can play, I have to say, yes, I want that guy to be in my room, right? Okay, so let's go back. I would write a thank you letter to the coach who came to our area, write a thank you letter to the position coach. So if our defensive end got recruited, I would write a letter to the coach in the area. Thank you so much for believing in him and giving him this opportunity to get a scholarship to change his future. I would write a letter to the defensive line coach. I may have never met this person in my life. Coach so-and-so, thank you so much for believing in so-and-so. I'm so excited that you believe in him. You want him in his room. You give him an opportunity to play at the next level and get a degree. And then I would write a letter to the head coach of the program. Hey, coach, thank you so much for your belief in my player. Coach, your program is one of the top, or whatever I noticed about the program. And I'm so thankful that this young man will have opportunity. There was one head coach that reached back out to me. I wrote him a letter saying, thanks so much. And he DM'd me and said, hey, coach, I really appreciate you sending a letter. A lot of people don't do that. And then they came back. Guess what that happened? They came back to our school. He said, if you need anything, let us know. And so I value their time. They're on the road. They're out on I saw it on that end. But when I got into the college level, it was just seeing them on the road, how long they're on the road, and just a simple thank you. Yeah, we have players. I mean, it could get really dicey and nasty now with parents on social media. Why you ain't offer my son? Why you, coaches even, why you ain't offer this kid? So I always wanted to say thank you so much for offering not only our kid, but also spending time on our campus. Thank you for coming through to see us. Now, how does this translate to me getting a job at the University of Houston? It showed Coach Tom Herman and those who made this decision that I appreciated the process, that I had an appreciation of the process of what it took to get to that point. And so they saw that. They would see the cards. Coach Herman wrote back. I got some cards there. A lot of people on staff will write back. And so that's something that Will Baggett talks about it all the time. Writing a card, at the end of the day, Will Baggett says it's better than anybody. We're all human, right? In the rise of AI, in the rise of this, in the rise of automatic replies, writing a letter can go a long way. And then the eighth thing that helped me get the position at the University of Houston was I was strategically placed. I was in a place when I got that job, our sophomore class was absolutely loaded. Over the span of 3 years, we had 50 players play some level of college football. And so we were going to have a lot of coaches come through. I think we had 14 Division I players, and there's one in the NFL right now, still playing in the NFL. Shout out to Matthew Adams, who actually went with me from Hightower to Houston. I got to see him on his last 2 years. But anyway, we were in a great place. I was in a great place, where there was so much talent. It was my alma mater. It was always players in that area of Mo City. Shout out to everybody in Mo City. Hey, Mo City, Missouri City. Some of you all may know it. And so being there, coaches had to come through. You have to stop by Hightower. You will always have to stop by Hightower. I don't know what it is, but it's just players there, right? And so I was strategically placed there at the right time, in the right place, with a loaded younger or underclass or younger, is it underclass, upper class? So if it's upper class, a loaded underclassmen, a group or younger group, okay? And so that was really, really beneficial to coaches being there. Now, once again, they didn't have to come. Well, they did have to come, but they didn't have to engage us. They could have just done what they needed to do and keep moving. We set it up to where they always came back. Now, how did this help me get into the role at the University of Houston player development? It showed that I was a good steward of the resources. Now, I don't want to call players resources, but just walk with me here. I was a steward of what was there, the resources. And like I said, I was not arrogant to say, hey, you have to come through here. I say, you know what? We got 20 kids that can play, or 14 kids that play Division I. Let's try and help these other kids, right? So they were able to see that, hey, not only do we have players, but we were able to get a lot of other kids scholarships because of being a good steward of not only their talent, but also what they did in the classroom. So it showed Tom Herman at University of Houston, hey, this guy is a good steward of resources, be it players, be it resources we provide him with budget, be it resource we provide him in programming, whatever. He's going to do a good job and capitalize on the moment that he has to impact others. Now, that's the last piece. That's the eighth part that helped get me into the player development role at Houston. And so right now I want to ask you, where are you? Where are you right now? Where are you strategically placed? What role, what responsibility do you have right now that you can say, you know what? I can flip this. I can make this into something big. I can show others what I can do with what I have. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're working in compliance. Maybe you're a high school coach. Maybe you're a high school teacher. Maybe you're in another entire different career field. Maybe you're in an EQ equipment student, maybe you're a sports administration student, but where are you? How can you find that strategic placement you have to help mold some skill that someone would use to hire you in this role? If you're not in the role, right? Because you're watching this. It's the title is something that says, how did I get into player development? I get this question asked a lot. So you're watching it. So think about that. So to recap, I'm going to talk about the 8 things that helped me get in the role. Number 1, once again, I was great in the role, which translated that I could focus on roles and responsibilities. Number 2, I made myself known, which translated into being a great user of social media. Number 3, I understood the role of coaches and recruiting, so that helped translate into me understanding the big picture. Number 4, I was efficient with the coach's time, so that showed that I understood efficiency. Number 5, I did what's best for the players overall, so that showed that I cared about the futures of players. Number 6, I had a system of operations, which showed I could run a unique program. Number 7, I valued the time of coaches and their programs, which showed I appreciated the process. And number 8, I had strategic placement where I was at, which showed I was a good steward of resources. And so those are the 8 things that I believe helped me get into the role. When I look back at it, like I said, it's my first time sharing this, and it was pretty cool diving into like, you know what, why did they really hire me? Outside of just being Ed Jones or even, hearing, hey, we want a positive black male in our program. Why did they hire me? Had to be more than that, because they could find that a lot of places in Houston. So that's my recap there. My impactful end for you is to see, if you're in the role trying to transition in, see why. I want you to write down 8 things that you do and how they translate into someone hiring you. Yes, that is your homework for today. And I want to let y'all know, I want to see that homework in the comments. Let me know or email me. If this helps you in any way, please, please, please press the like button, subscribe, and leave a review. I haven't said that in a while. Leave a review for all my people that are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for joining as well. Well, as I always say, go out and create generational impact, and make sure you come check out part two of, what is part 2 about? Oh yeah, how I transitioned from school to school. Thank y'all so much. Have a great day and see y'all.